Yo, what you not saying? It's the boy here. I've been off for YouTube for quite some time, but yeah, let's get started. Yeah, so it's in regards to the bios of the Mk1 characters that were revealed so far. So yeah, let's get into it. So starting off with Scorpion. So basically, he is essentially Lingwei. So I think that's been been through for that many months now, I believe. Well, not many months, but 3 months. But yeah, Scorpion is now confirmed to be Lin Kuei. However, they still haven't confirmed the name yet. However, it is looking to be in Hua Liang's favor. This is because it states that he was mainly following the lines of wishes of his child's father. So he's basically looking to essentially use the Lin Kuei to essentially protect her from. However, in his bio, it also mentions that due to Sub-Zero being the leader, who he essentially took riding before and basically made sure that he was leading the career to basically success. Basically, what Bihon's doing now is basically making a powerful nation, which is something that Scorpion doesn't really agree with, and it might allude to him fighting with Bihon. So it's obvious that they are going to fight at some point. But the question is, what happens next? Because the thing is, Bihon isn't noob in this game. So will Scorpion kill Bihon this time round? Because in the previous timelines, it was essentially Bihon that killed Scorpion. Yeah, and then Scorpion went out to essentially kill Bihon. But this time around, it may be Bihon that might be essentially killed around. Basically, in order to make sure that maybe Noob Saibot might come back. Some people have speculated that it could be Kuai Liang that might be Noob Saibot, but then that would mean like, you know, you're going from Hellfire to Wraith, and here's the thing, who's going to be the new Scorpion for the next game after Mk1? So you got to consider that in mind. So I think what might happen is that Bihon might get killed off by Scorpion as a way to essentially bring back a new Saibot, and then Kuai Liang will essentially come in to essentially do, you know, the regular Sub-Zero. Alright, so next we're gonna go into Bihon's bio. So yeah, they basically mentioned that his clan was essentially protecting Elven for essentially a really long time, and now that he sees that the Lin Kuei should be protecting threats that ain't even gonna come in the first place. So basically, there's been some long time of peace that's happened now. Basically, emphasizing on Liu Kang's ideals of peace that has actually happened on this timeline. And yeah, they basically want Lin Kuei to be a powerful nation. Now, what's really interesting about this idea is that considering it's in the modern time frame, you would expect it to be in case of the fact that the cyber Lin Kuei would essentially be a major part of this, because you know cyborgs are meant to be overpowered as shit, and mainly in the previous timelines they talk about how like cyborgs were essentially like, you know, always like superior to humans. But in saying that, there's not much info on that the cyber Lin Kuei. I don't think there's any information at all. So could you perhaps try to like offset or on Cyrax? Basically, for the cyber Lin Kuei's plan, I'm probably trying to do it in a more traditional method. That could be something worth to explore, but I'm not sure if fans would really take too much interest into the cyber Lin Kuei initiative idea of being completely axed out. So yeah, I think it is. So that's another theory of mine that I'm thinking of. The cyber Lin Kuei could essentially be axed out for this game. Maybe the cyber Lin Kuei could potentially try and make an agreement with Scorpion, but I don't think that's going to happen, considering, you know, does Scorpion even accept the cyber Lin Kuei idea in this timeline round, just to make sure that he comes in. So yeah. Moving on, we're going to go on to Liu Kang's bio. Okay, so for those of you that speculated about it being a continuation from Aftermath and MK11's story, I think his bio pretty much confirms it. So basically, he basically won the hourglass, and after he basically had the hourglass, he basically used it to basically get rid of any threats that he had faced previously in the past. So yeah, what it looks like, I don't think Shang is going to be the main villain, because Shang is a villain that he faced in the past, right? And same with Shao Kahn, same with Shinnok. Shinnok should be at least wiped out anyway, considering the fact that the older ones are pretty much all villains, and he has made an experience of how much they basically fucked over Earthrealm, essentially. Quan Chi, he did face Quan Chi before in the second timeline, which is the NOS timeline. So, yeah. They also touched upon the fact that there's going to be a new threat that's going to be like all of reality level. So, yeah, everything's going to pretty much die if he doesn't do anything about it. And it's for someone who has been faced before. Now, there's only two theories that you could pretty much come from this. Either Naga, if the intro dialogues of Mk1 are basically non-canon, because the thing is, although he did essentially not fit his own Naga in the previous timelines, yeah, so the first timeline and the second timeline, he does have Raiden's experience, and I'm not sure if you guys know this, but Raiden essentially did deals with the bad guys in order to make sure that everyone was essentially safe in Armageddon. That's why it was basically confirmed. This was after he basically turned dark. Yeah, and Raiden did go up against Onaga in the first timeline. So would Liu Kang have the knowledge of that, or would he not? It's very weird how it's essentially going to be as essentially an enemy that's being set, and Onaga could essentially be the main villain, depending on how much knowledge that Liu Kang actually has. But then again, he is a novice in the Godhood area, so he might not have all that memories or access on Raiden's experience, and that might justify him not knowing Onaga. And yeah, I'm also wondering if they are actually going to confirm that Liu Kang basically has Onaga's powers. So yeah, so that's all those three characters done. The next characters you basically have Johnny Cage. So not much has changed about Johnny Cage being like a movie star. He's a 21st century action hero, and he's basically been adored a lot by fame, and basically a lot of his fans through social media, and his basically relevance is dying down, and he basically uses the tournament to essentially get his fame back. So although his character development was pretty good in the NRS timeline, I'm not sure if I really want that again. I feel like they should take Johnny Cage's characters in a completely new direction, like because we've already seen him in this, how he developed to a soldier in the special forces, but they never did anything in regards to the Mediterranean cult. So I am hoping they expand a bit upon the Mediterranean cult as something new for John Cage, because they never really done that in any of the timelines, honestly. So yeah, that's probably the only new angle you could take with Johnny Cage. If that doesn't happen, he's probably the most least interesting character from all the buyers. But yeah, I feel like people saying Johnny Cage is like very boring as a whole, like, you know, compared to like Unspecial Muscles characters. I very much disagree with, considering he has more of a story background than Sonya and Jax. They're just special forces. Johnny Cage is an actor, he's got powers, etc. etc. So there's a lot more you can work with Johnny Cage than, you know, Sonya and Jax. So yeah. So the next characters in the bios, I'll go over the Indians first, as I'm pretty sure most of you know what happens with the Indians anyway. So basically, I'll go over Katana. Her purpose is essentially to protect her Otis. making sure that she's essentially, the new Empress of Outworld. So basically, she's not. Melina's essentially not the Empress of Outworld as of currently. So it could be the parents of Katana and Melina, which could be Sindar and Gerard. Yeah, actually did manage to confirm that it was Gerard and Sindar if you manage to look at the bios in German. So yeah. And basically, she's basically out having to protect the entire Melina Targaryen disease from the public, so make sure that doesn't get revealed out. So from what it looks like, so Katana actually cares for the sister this time around, which is something that wasn't really explored in the previous timeline before. The first timeline, it was essentially lots of hatred and how, in spite of the fact that she was cloned, and then from that point on, it was pretty much just rivalry between the two. In this timeline, there was literally no rivalry. I think Katana only met once, and that's it. So there looks like to be doing something more with them here, and yeah, that's really all you can get out of that. Now, what I'm interested to see is that Jared is actually confirmed in this time as the father. So what could happen is I'm hoping they don't make him like a weak cock, because honestly, Mk1's treatment of him was basically abysmal. He gets killed like 3 people, man. In the Mk2 Malibu comics, he was essentially portrayed as like how basically the only time he was essentially with cheap shots and not put on actual fights, which means like could highlight Shao Kahn's attention in terms of and how he assesses the situation. So some characters may be so powerful that he might need to cheap shot them. In this timeline, Jared gets completely dumped on by everyone. Like, I'm surprised they haven't even in a specific timeline that everyone's going to go Jared, which is honestly it is very annoying because it's basically the reminiscent of the Cole Khan treatment. So yeah. So Melina's bio did confirm on thing that she was the older sister of by mere seconds. I'm not sure why she's basically the Empress, considering it's Liu Kang's timeline, and he does know Melina as like an evil version of Katana. So why would you make the evil version of Katana the Empress? Like, it doesn't really make any sense. There's also some really weird stuff when it comes to Melina. Right, so pretty much Katana's mentions most about Melina's disease or whatever. But the interesting part is that it's related to Tarka disease. So here's the thing. I don't want this to happen, but from what it looks like, the Tarkans may not be a thing. So it might be just resulted a different, like completely like a disease, and that's it. Now, fans are speculating that Baraka may accidentally bite into her, but what other chances of that happening? Because of course, that they're basically super enhanced humans with magic, and I don't think actual Cotton will do much to it anyway. If we're talking about like regular powers wise, so let's move on to that. But if what I believe is true, a lot of Baraka fans will not be happy. So yeah. So yeah, I'm hoping they don't make it into Baraka's race into a bloody disease. I thought like it would be best if it was Natara, and basically Natara essentially managed to spread her influence into Outworld and such a comment. Because disease mainly comes from vampires or werewolves as the common cliche. But to get rid of Baraka's race like that, I don't think is a good idea in my personal opinion. But yeah, that's pretty much really all the Dinner's backstory is as of currently so far done. So we're going to get into the final 3 characters, Kenshi, Kung Lao and Raiden. So let's start off with Kenshi first. So what people speculated about Kenshi being Yakuza, that is confirmed. So ancient tribe, his Asian clan was essentially decimated in battle, and they were known as one of the most respected families. And then his family moved to the Yakuza, and after committing some crimes in the Yakuza, yeah, he basically decided to, redeem himself and, make sure to get his family out of the entire Yakuza descendant tribe. So he needs to do that through getting through Centaur. And this is probably one of the most interesting aspects of Kenshi, considering the fact that mainly when it comes to Kenshi, yeah, I think they're touching upon a lot about his original lore. So mainly in the first time around, he was basically a power-hungry swordsman, and then when he got Centaur, yeah, he basically fell into his ambitions in regards to power, and then he got blinded by Centaur. Now they're touching a lot more in regards to that. They're talking a lot more about his crime group. And I do like how the Yakuza, there's more crime groups in overall rather than just being the Black Dragon and the Red Dragon. So a bit more rivalry there, and perhaps it could make a lot more interesting dynamics with Kano if he is part of the confirmed Mk1 roster. So yeah, honestly, pretty good take for Kenshi, and Kenshi is probably one of the best by on stories from what it looks like in terms of potential wise by far. So definitely looking to see more of Kenshi. Raiden is pretty much the old switcher, so your classic student becomes master, master becomes student. That's it. That's the shit. Now they basically mentioned that he's basically living in some village on Mount Fage, known for his act of kindness, and him toiling in the fields, and how it's a. Now there is an interesting fact about Raiden's bio, so mainly about the fact that he hesitates at first. So what does he exactly hesitate about? Well, that's what we don't know. Could it be from the fact that from the previous timeline something managed to come through and Raiden knows about it? Or does or does this Raiden have the new memories of mortal Raiden in Mk1 Aftermath? Here's the thing, Liu Kang, as of right now, is the only thing that is essentially canon throughout both the time. So he was the only one that was essentially hasn't started afresh, from what it looks like. Could this be the same with Raiden as well? Maybe the reason why he hesitates is because he sees some great threat in the future as a champion, and he may potentially do something different, like to make sure that he can protect his friends, and essentially he might disagree with Liu Kang. What I am hoping for Raiden is for him to become a protector by the end of Mk1 or potentially in the next game, and hopefully do something more with Raiden, because the thing is, I think the entire student and master switchery, the entire role reversal thing is pretty much. I think it's essentially the most predictable route that you could have taken with a character. So yeah, I personally feel like if it was the case in my ideas, I would possibly make Shang's ending canon as well. Like have it be in a completely different timeline where Shang wins, and then what I would do then is Raiden could have some form of visions through, Dark Raiden essentially conquering realms, and then he might try to essentially use that as motivation to essentially try and do things differently to save Earth from in a different way. Liu Kang's ideas may go completely against that, but because the thing is, he has the timeline, he has the Amna, which basically allows him to send messages through the time. So, send messages through time, as shown with Mk9. So I was wondering if that Amna could potentially be linked to multiple timelines, if he can receive the visions from. And then that way, one timeline could essentially be linked heavily towards the new timeline that Liu Kang created, and then that's just a theory to think about, but I'm hoping that Raiden gets more independence as a student. So basically doesn't follow Liu Kang completely. Pretty much, I'm not sure if Liu Kang did this in the original MK games, but It didn't really seem like it. He more like an ally and more of a respected equal to Raiden anyway. So yeah, that's Raiden's done. Then you finally have Kung Lao. So Kung Lao is also in the films as well. He basically does that, and most of his mainly pulls upon the line of him having an unworthy life. So unworthy life, his life may not amount to nothing. So that's why he essentially joins the tournament. So yeah, that's pretty much all you can really get out of Kung Lao. I am wondering, considering the fact that it's in Kung Lao from the modern day, I am wondering if he gets his great Kung Lao spirit powers back. Because Mk1 did show that he had great Kung Lao spirit powers, and then that's going to be his like main source of like inner power. I wonder if him and Raiden could potentially go out together. Maybe Liu Kang might have sent some sort of message to the Great Kung Lao in the new timeline, and then there was a major jump in time to the present day. And Liu Kang was essentially talking to the Great Kung Lao about how he must train himself to become more also for more future threats for Kung Lao to handle. He essentially becomes spirit to Kung Lao to make sure that the current Kung Lao could essentially become more powerful to do with really more OP threats. Honestly, I'm a bit disappointed that he wasn't champion, considering the fact that Raiden was essentially built and foreshadowed as an advisor to MK Aftermath Liu Kang in order to make sure that he could basically craft a perfect reality. But that was essentially his role to be built up towards, not reborn as a mortal and someone. I feel like the champion role should have gone to Kung Lao this time around, considering they do absolutely nothing with him. But yeah, I am hoping to see if the Great Kung Lao does have any sort of major relevance towards Kung Lao and how his story is gonna play out. Maybe his powers may have like more relevance towards that another story. Maybe when Raiden falls or something like that. Or perhaps, you know, maybe Kung Lao could potentially have the disagreements with Liu Kang instead of Raiden, because they're basically building up Raiden to be the Liu Kang of this time, and we all know how Liu Kang was up until the disagreements. He was basically following Liu Kang up until order. So that could be an interesting direction for Kung Lao. But yeah, that's pretty much everything in regards to bios. They haven't revealed anything for Shang Tsung, funnily enough. So yeah, what do you lot think about the bios? And leave your thoughts in the comments. And yeah, take care.